I see me in there? Yeah. Okay. All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of On Location with Rekha and Gabby. As always, I'm Gabby. Rekha is behind the cameras today. And today I'm joined by a guest that I'm very excited to talk to because this is going to be a lot of like catching up.
Yeah.
And I will try to share stories and catch you folks at home up with. But I'm joined by none other than Zeph. Zeph, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Gabby. Nice to be here.
Yeah, Zeph is an amazing artist. And Zeph and I actually know each other from way, way back.
2007.
2007.
Yeah.
See, I
Before
want you to tell me, how do you think we met in high school?
I feel like in high school, it must have been in some like AP classes, like AP chemistry, AP bio, but maybe math? Was it like AP math? I can't remember.
You're pretty close.
Okay.
So, allow me to set the stage here.
Oh, goodness.
I am in history class with this guy. Zeph sits across, like all the way on the other side.
Oh, no.
I am like behind a bunch of like girls that I knew back then. One day, they're all like putting on a bunch of cream, handing cream to each other, and I'm like, my hands are kind of dry. Maybe I should ask them for cream. So I asked them for cream. They hand me this giant pink bottle of whatever it was. I think it was like Japanese cherry blossoms. And I think you're sort of like, click here. And I opened the lid because I'm like, this is just like way too, like coming out too slow and everything. And I go 1, 2, and this giant glob of just pink is on my hand. And then I panic because I'm like, oh my God, I've only been like in this class for like 3 days. I don't want like, and there's a mess on the table. And I'm just like slowly trying to put everything back into this bottle.
Oh my goodness.
And like panicking. And the only person who somehow sees me is none other than this guy. And you turn over and vocally go, is that Pepto-Bismol?
I do remember that now.
And I'm sitting there with like just pink all over my hands. I'm like, it's not Pepto-Bismol. But that doesn't answer anything for high schoolers because now they're just like, it is Pepto-Bismol. You'd only deny this if it was. And I'm like, guys, no, like, and I'm like, smell it. I'm telling you. And everyone's just laughing. And I'm like, all right, Zeph. Okay, that's cool. It was just like, and I was like trying to like, rub it off. And it was just like the sum of all fears. I was just like, I'm just going to like, no one saw this. No one saw this. And this guy's like, is that Pepto-Bismol? I'm like, no, not like this, please. So yeah, that's how Zeph and I met. It was great. It was in history class. Zeph, some questions.
Of course.
When we went to school, I don't remember you being quite the artist. Like obviously, if you folks haven't caught up, Zeph has become an awesome artist. Like just look at some of these pieces, and I like hold them up here. Was this something that I just didn't know about you?
No, I didn't know it about me, honestly.
Oh.
I kind of, when I was like in elementary, junior high, you were kind of introduced to art, like finger painting, stuff like that. I started doing collage around that time as well, just kind of creating scrapbooks of like all my old concerts that I would go to, like Cher, went to the Moffats, and just kind of like creating like little mementos of like my time as a child, and like even just hanging up posters in my bedroom of like the Spice Girls, Britney Spears, and just kind of like decorating my room. I guess that would be my like first actual time of like experimenting with art and identity. But besides that, in high school, I took like music, like guitar. I took hypermedia technology, which is more kind of like
I think we were in that class too.
Yeah, probably.
Is it the one where we had to like build websites and
and
a game eventually?
Yeah.
And many of us were like, we had no idea that the teachers could do that thing where they could see your screen.
Yeah.
So we're like,
and they grabbed it. And
yeah, and you're like, oh God, yes.
But besides that, no, not really. And then so, it was like after high school, I kind of got more into art. I took my Bachelor of Science. I was 3 years in, and I'm like, I definitely do not want to do this for a living.
Ah.
And so I took a little bit of time off, and then I transferred into interior design instead.
Okay.
So that was done through the Faculty of Extension. It was like a 3-year program, just a little certificate program through the Residential Interiors program, it was called. And then was working in that industry for a while and realized it was very limiting in my creativity.
Ah, okay.
And started to create art instead, and found I just felt there's more freedom.
And doing,
Yeah, in doing art.
Okay. So I know that many people, and like I've discussed this with them, like because I went to, I feel like first year, like I was like computer engineering, that's gonna be for me, and I was like, and upon like 1 year in, I was like, hey, so like I hate math and I hate physics, and they're like, you're gonna be doing a lot more of this, and that's when I was like, I think I'm going to just admit to myself, I don't like this, and I don't think this is the path for me, because like I feel like in high school you were just like continually hounded to pick something, and then many of us didn't like choose what we actually wanted. We just would say a filler because I'm like, I want you off my back, so you stop asking me.
Totally. There's just lots of pressure, hey?
Yeah. It was like, and it's like bizarre that like, I'm thinking back to high school, me, like, my priorities were like, what am I having for lunch? And this is the same guy who's supposed to dictate what I want for my future. Like, it was just a very bizarre concept. So I always felt as soon as I kind of like gave up there that first year, that I was like, oh my gosh, like now I'm going to be behind my peers. Now I like, what am I going to do? I need to do something. I can't possibly just like peace and leave. Like everyone needs work. Like, and by then like you're now 18, so taxes are a thing and you owe money. Like, what would you say to folks who, like, because I have many, like, younger cousins, everything, that are like, I don't know what I want to do leaving high school. And they have so much more pressure because now they're like, I don't want to, like, there's this concept of, like, waste time. So what would you...
I would say, just, like, don't succumb to that pressure. Like, you almost have to put that aside. I know it's really hard when you're young, you feel that pressure. But for me, I've changed careers. I'm like 35 years old. I like out of high school was working at Canadian Tire part-time. And then I started working at Bank of Montreal, and I'm like, maybe I want to be a banker, get into finance, and like I absolutely hate that too. Then went into like furniture sales. Then I was working at like an environmentally friendly store. And then I started to open my own business as an artist full-time. So I think, and who knows, maybe like 10 years down the road I might change things again. We never know, right? So I think just knowing that people who are older are still kind of changing their minds and they're still figuring out what it is that they want to do as well, I think is something that's then kind of give you a little bit of comfort if you're kind of confused on what you want to do right now. Just knowing that that's okay and that's normal and that's not going to be forever, and just kind of go on that journey to figure things out.
That's awesome. I love that answer, because I feel like that's kind of what I ended up doing. Like I was just like, I don't know. I really don't know. And then eventually I ended up like on sets with folks, helping them film, keeping them on time. Like, you know, there's like a career for this. We're like, you're assistant director. And I'm like, what? And I was like, film, what? And then before long I was like, you know, I actually enjoy this, and maybe this can be my career. But I never would have thought that in high school. Never would have thought that in my first. I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. I just don't know. What I did know was not this. You know, like, but I just never had the concept of like branching out, trying new things. Like, that was the biggest thing. Is like, I would consistently share it with folks. Like, just give it a try. You know, go. Like, if I'd not gone on that one first set, I would not have known. Like, there's paths and branches.
And I think that another important thing to note is that, like, your peers, when you're in high school or university, I'm not sure they know either. And it's just not something that you guys talk about, and you're all like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But I don't think that fear that we all have, we don't think we share that with one another. And so I don't think we're as alone as we think we are. So I think just being like open about that and honest, like so many of my friends, they know what they want to do. They want to go into education, or they want to go into sciences, or they want to go into whatever, the arts, or maybe they just want to take a year off. And it seems everyone knows what they want to do except for me. And I don't necessarily think that they're being honest with themselves either sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I mean, I get it, because even when I was going through it, I was like, I'm not sharing any of that. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then inside, that little voice was like, do we? I'm like, I don't know. It's up to us.
Yeah.
But I feel like eventually you do find,
Of course.
yeah, your path, the passions, things that you enjoy. You had spoken earlier, you briefly dropped it, and I want to touch back on it. But besides the kind of artistic journey, you had mentioned about like an identity journey. Can you expand more about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So like when I was in my second year University of Sciences, my brother was diagnosed with cancer, and it was within like a year. He declined really fast and he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and then it was about 3 years later, my other brother, he also got diagnosed with a similar kind of cancer. And so it was within like 5 years, I had lost my brother, my other brother, and then my mom and dad. So my parents were a lot older than parents of kids my age, and they weren't the most healthiest, just like kind of smoked all their lives and things like that. But I had lost my entire family in like 5 years. So it was a lot. And so when I was going through all of my parents' stuff in the childhood home that I actually live in now, I was just going through old magazines, things like that, just flipping through. It was like very nostalgic and brought up a lot of memories from my childhood and just kind of like that era of my parents. And so as a way to kind of help with grief, I started to kind of cut through magazines, find different things, piece them together, and kind of glue them down. And it was like a really beautiful, healing, sort of peaceful thing. And I fell in love with that. And I've kind of stuck with it. So that was in about 2018. And now I'm doing art full time. It's since evolved. It's less death and more kind of queerness and just nature, things like that, and exploring more joy. But that's kind of like, yeah, my identity journey is kind of transformed. Yeah.
I had no idea. That's my out of questions here, because I'm like, oh my gosh, Zeph,
Yeah.
I'm so like mentally all I want to say is like, I'm so sorry that you had to
Thank
go
you.
through that. And
I think like talking about it a lot, I've gotten more comfortable being able to like talk about it with people and just being more vulnerable. At first, it was like really difficult and very traumatic, obviously. But for me, during that time, I was very scared of death, and it was on my mind constantly, of course. And it was something that I would always think about. And I think in our culture, especially Western culture, death is something that we're kind of afraid of, and we're scared to talk about and be open and honest, talking about the death of our loved ones, but even thinking about our own mortality sometimes. So during that time, I kind of started to explore a little bit of that. I started to read books. I took a couple of courses. I did some volunteering at hospices. I'm still doing that, and kind of got registered to become like a death doula. So I'm not doing that actively right now, but it's more something that I'm volunteering time to do, just kind of helping people be more comfortable with their own mortalities and helping like family members, like loved ones of family members as well. And I've always loved teaching yoga, and that's something that has really helped me too, just practicing yoga for myself to kind of help just provide a calmness and like some like deeper reflection on life, and helping with anxiety, things like that, to kind of be more in your body and things. So
something that I don't know if my voice is being picked up here. Come on in here.
Yeah.
Whisper in Gabby's shirt.
yeah, this is
something that I've recently heard being said. I can't remember where exactly, but it was this idea that like when we're nourishing other people, we're doing things that are are nourishing for other people, we in turn are also nurturing ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's very true. I think that's another big thing. It's just like, yeah, knowing that I'm helping people, it makes me feel, it's like very healing too, you know? So absolutely, that's very true.
No, you're right about like, it's very fascinating that how quick, like I had, my grandfather from my mom's side passed last year. And it's very interesting that you touched on like Western culture. Like it almost feels like there's this whole thing of like you die when you're this age, but there is no kind of dealing with the idea of like it could happen tomorrow. It could happen like, and then like there's always this. Anytime I've tried to talk with them about like their backgrounds, religions, everything, like, oh, so you believe in reincarnation? You believe like what happens after?
Yeah.
Many folks just like shut down and like do not want to talk about it. They do not want to address it. They don't even want to like think of the concept in the slightest. And I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like, to me, after like attending that funeral and everything, I was just like, you know, those really like the ones where they're like very close, especially like mom and dad and everything. That's when I found I began to actually think like, oh my gosh, like this could happen anytime.
Yeah.
What is my journey like? And I almost feel like I would love to come to peace with the idea of like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to many of us, it's like the fear hits first, right?
Yeah, the fear hits first, exactly. And then we just kind of push it aside, hey, and just kind of distract ourselves with whatever. But yeah, absolutely. And like people have said like, oh, Zeph, like you're like a death guru now. Like you've experienced it all. Like you must not be like afraid. But I'm still afraid to die. Like you know, we all have different fears. I think for me, the biggest thing is like fear of pain. Not so much the process of dying, but just like having that pain and discomfort is like a big thing for me. Just because I saw it was so visceral with my parents and seeing, and my brothers, it was very intense. And yeah, so for me, that's like still a big one that I'm still trying to kind of work through. But
so instead of it being more about like like what it would be like to go through it ourselves, was it more about, you know, how it felt to see them go through that and then trying to navigate that? Like, how did you navigate that? You navigated that on your own, right?
Yeah, I navigated on my own. Obviously, for me, like, I was always a very open, vulnerable kid, and my mom embraced that. I think I'm very lucky that I had a mom that was that way with me, because I think I have not been afraid to talk about people or talk about it with people, asking for help. So I had a lot of friends that I was able to talk to. I was friends with a lot of their parents as well. And so just getting lots of different kinds of like love and support and understanding was like very helpful too, I would say. Yeah.
Was there a moment in there that like, because many times through grief and everything, I felt like I had moments where like shut down. Like one of the biggest things I did that like I had to learn to overcome is like when someone passes, immediately I'm like, arrangements, everything. And I never, ever give myself time to be like, now I need to grieve, now I need to, you know, I almost felt like, and because you shut it down, because of course, like, you want them to be like, services to be done well, everything, you don't realize, and many times, like, it would be months after the event, where I'd be like driving somewhere and suddenly break down, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I never grieved.
There's like a really beautiful analogy that I heard of, you're in this small room, and there's a button on a wall, that's the grief button, and you feel the emotions of grief, like pain, anger, you know, sadness, things like that. And there's this ball that's bouncing around the room. And so at first, you know, that ball is hitting that button often, and you're feeling that grief. But as the room grows, which is your life, you're kind of like life grows and keeps growing and growing and kind of disappearing, and that ball is still bouncing around and that button is still there, but every so often it's still going to hit the button. And so even like 5 years down the road, you know, you're feeling good, you know, you've had some time to grieve and it's happening less and less, but you see something like a flower or like a car or even like a company that your mom or dad worked for being advertised, and you see that and then you have that moment again. Mm-hmm. And it can be just as strong, just as difficult, just as hard, but it is happening less and less over time. But it doesn't mean it's still not going to happen. So I really love that analogy.
That's really that was like
so true.
The entire time you're saying, I'm like, yeah, because like you would think that in the process of like I grieved, funeral service happened, you know, and like that's it. But you're right, like many things where, you know, one of the biggest things is like I know that like my grandpa, like again similar thing, big smoker, like loved his Marlboro Reds. So there was a time when I was like, I think coming out of like a bar, I can't remember where, I just smelt it and immediately was like depressed, sad, and I was just like, because I just thought of him, right? It's this little tiny thing that you know, and again, I was having a great time. I was going for a friend's birthday, came out of the bar, and just as soon as the scent hit, I was like, it's like that button, and I was like, oh man, like I miss that guy, and then just like that all happened, and I was just like, oh, like, and I had thought, you know, with like months and everything, all good, but.
And that's something I think that's like a big like misconception by people who haven't really experienced loss, is like that there's like a expiration date on the grief. That it's like, oh, it's something that you're eventually going to get over. I'm not saying that you don't ever get over it. It becomes, your life becomes, you know, different, and it kind of grows without them, and it's something you kind of get used to, but it's not something you should ever get over because they were important people in your life. It's not something that, you're not going to forget the memory of them and what they meant to you, you know? So, yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I love the idea that, like, art definitely, I feel like, helped you, in the sounds of it, like, really process, really push through, and make it happen. Have, like, obviously because you said that you, and I remember even from high school, you're a very open person. You're very open to, like, anytime I talk to you or chat with you, anything, you're like, I feel this, I do this. And I was like, interesting. Zeph is very, like, just like, I think you were one of the first people where, like, and I never had this concept where you're like, I'm not having a good day today. And you're just, like, very vocal about it. And many times we're just pushed to be like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Anytime you, like, it's so crazy systematic that, like, anytime someone asks you, like, how are you doing, you're immediately like, I'm good or great. Or there's never a thing where you can be like, you know what, today sucks, today blows, I don't, like. And that was one thing, like, I remember, like, there was, I can't remember what day it was or anything, but we were all, like, finishing gym, and we're like, and then someone had asked you, like, how are you doing, and you're like, not great, today sucks. And I was like, you can say today sucks, and, like, and I just didn't know why I imagined, maybe it was because high school brain, and you're like, everyone's like looking at me, right? So I was like, that, like, you know, alarms are gonna go off and they're gonna come drag you away because they're like, you cannot be good, you have to be good, or some bizarre facet. But, like, have you found that with you being open and sharing like your art and how it's helped you process things, like, have other folks come by and been like, this was very, like, healing, and I love this piece? Or
I think, like, I've done lots of, like, the market scene, and I've talked to lots of people over the last, like, 7-ish years, and there's lots of conversations that are happening. They'll ask, like, what's your inspiration, and sometimes I'll be able to talk about my story, and I think having those conversations with people, they tend to share stories about themselves and say that your art spoke to me in this way. Sometimes, like, we'll, like, hug it out, or, you know, just have, like, a really nice human moment kind of thing. So I think art, that's one thing about art that I really love, is that it speaks and touches people in different ways, and in ways that you might not even know yourself. That's like a big thing.
Wonderful. Was there something in the artistic journey that, like, as you were creating,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh gosh, I wish like I did less of this or I knew this, because many times I find that like people are beginning their art,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, I just wish I, you know, painted harder, like
Yeah.
added the colors I wanted to add, and I wasn't so, because like many times you have like boxes, you're like, it has to be this, until someone goes like, hey, there's like no actual rules for this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, there's like color theory and like concepts and everything,
course.
but like, there are no rules.
There are
So,
no rules,
yeah.
exactly. I think for me, maybe more so at the beginning, you know, you kind of want things to be perfect and balanced, and I think sometimes artists can spend too much time on perfecting,
Mhm.
and when you kind of let go of that, it kind of is very freeing, because then you can sometimes add too much and then it becomes too busy, or if you think, oh, there's not enough, and then if you just kind of like spend a day and you leave it and then you come back to it, you're like, no, this is good, just because it doesn't look as full as it should technically look,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I think for me, there can sometimes be like a level of imperfection in my art because I'm a collage artist. So sometimes you make little mistakes by like, oh, I cut too far into that, or I should have added like a different color into where it was, or I should have glued it down into a different place. But it's like, oh, it's permanent. Like
Mhm.
it's glued down there, it's staying. And there's kind of a beauty in that, I think, embracing the imperfection and like the permanence of something.
I then want to ask,
Yeah.
was there a particular piece that comes to mind where you're like, yeah, and like, because it's very interesting, like, unlike many conventional jobs where like, you know, we walked into a room and someone
Yeah.
reviews your performance for the year, art doesn't really have, I mean, like,
Yeah, it's true.
I guess to a degree, your audience and being able to sell it will really
Are the
tell you.
the criticals, the critiques, the
Yeah.
what, you know what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say.
Like,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
like you, there's no one, and like, had to learn this like very later on down the road of like, it's really you. You
Mhm.
have to go and put like,
Yeah.
my first year of work versus seventh
Yeah.
X number of year of work, and then you have to go, oh my gosh, I got better here. I did this.
Totally.
Was there a piece that kind of like, it began to cement that you're like, I've improved drastically, I've overcome
Mhm.
this?
I think, yeah, I think for me, it's all about like source material for collage, and you're hunting and like going on treasure hunts to try and find like the perfect piece to cut out to fit what it is you're wanting to build. And for me, I have an obsession with like the night sky and galaxies and stars, and I was running out of source material. I'm like, I cannot find any more skies, either that are new, ones that I've already used, and so I started to have to kind of create my own sort of like night skies and things. So this was like kind of like a game changer for me, realizing thought I was like, oh, I want to do only collage, and so I have to source only like
Images,
magazines,
pictures, yeah.
things like that. But I'm like, no, I can actually create my own backgrounds and my own galaxies and images and things like that. So I think for me, that was like where I feel my art sort of took off and evolved a little bit more for me as an artist. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to kind of see, as like folks will begin like with some medium and like, oh, hello.
Hello, Kitty.
We'll begin with some medium and then slowly realize like, for us, endlessly we would complain about like, there is no studio to shoot in Edmonton. There is no studio to shoot in Edmonton. And eventually, a friend of ours who's a realtor was like, hey, there's this space here. Do you guys want to turn it into a studio so you film in it? Because you always talk about it. I'm like, no.
Can we do that?
Yeah, like, and then suddenly you realize that like, hey, I could sit here and complain and like, hey, I can't find night skies. Or I'll be like,
Yeah.
well, I'm an artist. I can make the studio where I can, oh, hello.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
special guest appearance here.
You gonna come say hi, Howard? Wanna jump
Hi,
up?
Howard. He'll have to sign a release form, by the way.
Yeah.
How's it going? I know, I'm taking Zeph for a while here. But, yeah, it's very fascinating that, like, for us, we had to kind of create a studio space to make it happen. For you, you had to create the background
Yeah.
to make things happen. Oh, perfect.
You're in the frame, Howard. Right in the frame.
Now
Get off
he's
there.
famous.
Howard is
Yeah.
exactly
Howard is, yeah. Howard's being interviewed now.
That's
Well-
very cool, though, that you were able to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like there was this odd feeling, and I wanted to touch on this, like when it came to like signing that lease and turning the place into student everything.
Yeah.
That is when I would have to say one of my first moments of like the imposter syndrome
Yeah.
really kicked in.
Yeah.
Because up until then, like it's weird. Like for years, I'd filmed, I'd done shorts, worked with STORYHIVE, everything. Once it was like making the studio happen, I was like, but who am I to do this? Am I?
Totally.
Do I know things? What are my like? And I began to question myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much folks being like, you know, like the realtor didn't ask us. They're like, can you clear this amount of money a month? Like, yeah. And they're like, there's all the questions I have for you. Should I have other things? But like, no one really came by and asked like, do you think you want to do this? And what kind of merits do you have
Yeah.
to do this? Until I began to be like, what are we doing? Boys, what do we like? Is this what we want to do?
Yeah.
How have you kind of experienced imposter syndrome, and then like what do you kind of do to go like, listen, I've been doing this, you know.
Yeah.
What's your process for that?
No, absolutely. I still feel imposter syndrome a lot. I've had like lots of different sort of like accolades that have happened, like really exciting big things in my like art career that are yeah, they're like very exciting, very like big things, and each time they happened I was like almost like, are you sure? Like, do I deserve this? Like, because I haven't been an artist for very long, and I'm also not really, I don't have like, I'm not trained, like I didn't take a fine arts degree, things like that, and so all these like really exciting opportunities that have happened for me, I'm like, I kind of had to take a step back and be like, no, I do deserve this. I have worked really hard, and my art shows that, and people's excitement when they see my art as well is something that I think is like very deserving of those opportunities as well. So yeah, even today when I like was reminded of the email that you guys had sent me, I'm like, do I deserve to be doing an interview with you guys?
No, of course
Like,
you do.
you know what I mean?
Of course.
But like, it's just like, it's very exciting, and like, yeah, but it's still there. It's definitely still there, and I wonder even if like,
Does it?
Elon
My
Musk,
question is like, does
I
it
wonder if
ever go
Elon
away?
Musk feels
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I don't know if it ever goes away, and it's just like,
I always question, because like I have even heard professionals who like, and even like filmmakers who like, they just won an Academy Award and everything, and they're like, I didn't know if I deserved this. And like, you didn't know if you deserved this? I watched the movie you made. It won you an award. Like,
yeah,
how do you feel? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know if like, and to many folks, it's like, I don't know if I'm just like one hit wondering,
right.
and it just so happens, or if like there is a skill behind there. There is a talent, you know, like.
It's a little bit fake. I almost like a little bit of fake it till you make it, sort of. It's like it doesn't. You know you're deserving of it, and you get the opportunity, and like, you do well, and you work really hard at it. But it's like, I know sometimes for me, like I've gotten opportunities, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can actually do this. I don't know, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try my butt off, and they obviously see something in me, so I need to start seeing something in myself.
So it's kind of like push yourself out of that like comfort zone, and you're like, well, they approached me, they asked, why not?
Like I was approached, this was a couple of years ago, it was like right before COVID, I was approached from my junior high art teacher she saw my art, and she's like, I love your art, we should do a residency, you come into my school, I love your messaging, and I love your sort of experience and your story. I'd love for you to come in, teach a kids collage, and we can make a bunch of pieces inspired by yours, and then we can like hang it up somewhere. We got grant funding, and then it got canceled because of COVID.
Oh, right.
But just last year, again, we kind of been chatting, and it got approved. So I did a residency 2 months ago at McKernan Junior High School with my junior high art teacher. So it was like very full circle. It felt really, really
That's
cool.
awesome. Right.
But even in there, I'm like, I don't teach kids. I don't have an education degree. Like, do I deserve to do this? Do I have like the credentials to do this? But like, and like I know you knew me in high school. Like I was a little bit of a hyperactive.
Yes,
little
yes,
shit.
yes. And
And
like
so
I said, you'd always vocalize what you thought, even
I
though
know.
is that Pepto Bismol? I'm like,
Yeah.
why would you? Who would? Like, oh, like, please, sir, inside voice. But like, yes.
And so like I was like, okay, my karma's coming. Like I'm gonna, these kids are gonna be little terrors. But it was great. It was like a very beautiful experience, and just like I think in a lot of ways, collage is sort of like considered sort of elementary. Cutting things by hand, gluing things, piecing together. It's like something you do when you're a kid, and so being able to teach a younger sort of demographic that, and showing that you can be successful still doing stuff like this. If you love to do it now as a kid, you should still technically be able to still love it as an adult. And so that was a really fun message that we got to kind of do. But we had it all up at the AGA for a month, which was super cool. It was like in their like little basement gallery. And so the kids came, we had like an exhibition, they got to see all of their art hung up, all the parents came, all the kids took a look at it, and then they got to roam through the rest of the gallery. And I was watching them, and I saw them like realize, they're like, oh wow, like there's some like legit artists here, and they're like, oh my goodness, we're in the AGA.
Yeah.
We're in the AGA right now. That's really cool. Like we made it, and we're in junior high. So that was a really, really special kind of thing that I got to do.
No, that's wonderful. And I mean, like, that must have, like, you have to think, to every single kid, there has to be a moment when they're like, I love this. And I wonder, with, like, the number that you had there, if there was a kid that, like, that now lives with them, that, like, I can do this, I can make this happen. And then now they have an example. Because sometimes, like I will say it is difficult to consider like going to film, to go into this, because I'm like, I did not know anyone directly that was in there. Right? Much like I'm sure like for art, who did you know kind of like so you're like, can anyone actually like do this? Can they make a living with this? But like having them go through that, sit there and have you like instruct them and also put their work up there.
Yeah.
I feel like to some of them that was like now a core memory of like, you know what, you can do art and you can make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. I think that's very true. And like I was all self-taught, and for me, like I would say like my first actual introduction to taking art seriously was probably my junior high art teacher. So that was like, and it's funny because all of my friends from like junior high that I still talk to, like we're always like, oh yeah, Miss Chapman, and we took urban funk art. Remember, she was so funny. She was like so cool, and we did all this fun art. It was still like a core memory that we had, and it stuck with me. And then her reaching out is very, very sweet. It was like full circle, like I said, and we were able to share that with her next generation of students.
So, no, that's awesome. That's the beauty of like the full cycle, full push on it. So you had said earlier that like you'd gone through and you're trying to step away from more kind of the death, grief, and that kind of style. What is the style that you're now trying to, I guess, push for?
Yeah.
Or
I've been doing lots of like still collage-based stuff, but it's kind of stuff exploring just like my queerness, embracing my sexuality, kind of reflecting growing up queer in Alberta, and just kind of, as you can see in like these pieces, like I'm kind of like taking off the heads of these bodies and putting flowers or like birds, trees, anything that's kind of like that I find beautiful in nature. And it's just kind of like a take on that queerness is beautiful, queerness is natural, and that there is a interconnectedness between queer people and nature.
That's
Kind of
gorgeous,
thing.
yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been doing a lot these days. Been doing lots of mosaic tile work as well, which is still kind of like collage. It's still very destructive, and kind of taking something that is kind of broken, rebuilding it and piecing it together in a way that is full and beauty your own. So
No, wonderful.
that's what I'm doing these days. Yeah.
Have you found, like, much like the process of artwork helped you kind of with working through death and grief, has this helped you kind of, I don't want to say helped you with queerness, because
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
like,
definitely.
but helped you with your identity and, like, kind of settling in and going, like, I like this, I don't like this, like,
Yeah.
facets like that.
Absolutely. I think like just having all of that happen to me has kind of like changed the way that I see things. It changed the way that I kind of live my life. That life is short, that we aren't here for a very long time, and that there's no point in trying to live inauthentically, no point in trying to be someone that you're not in order to appease the norm. And there really is nothing wrong with queerness. It's like as natural as it can be. So I think, yeah, experiencing all that stuff definitely helped me live a more authentic, happy, fulfilled life, for sure. Yeah.
Now, I do want to touch on, because I told you I'd touch on this kind of beforehand. When we went to high school,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really had our identities going. But I don't think you, like, had you're like, I'm queer, I'm out and everything. Was there moments where, like, and I asked this for the viewers who are seeing this, and, like, kind of trying to think, like, were there moments where you're like, oh my gosh, no, and trying to keep yourself from it? Because you talked about
100%.
being authentic.
Yeah, I had lots of girlfriends in like high school.
Yes, that I remember. That like, Rekha laughs, but that's why, like, I think it was like 5 years after we bumped into each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, now it's my boyfriend. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
So it's interesting because it's like I had a girlfriend in grade 10, I had a girlfriend in grade 11, I had a girlfriend in grade 12, and then I had a girlfriend in university.
Yeah. When I tell you, like, Rekha is shocked behind camera. When I tell you, Zeph, like, I felt like continually had girlfriends. That's why when we bumped into each other, and he was like, oh, I think at the time, like, yeah, my boyfriend. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
And
like,
so
it wasn't enough for you to take all the girls in high school? Yeah, like, yeah. So.
But there is a reason. Yeah. And I think it's like, for me, I was trying so hard to fit in. I got really good at pretending to be someone that I wasn't. I was being someone who I was expected to be from my peers, from my family, from like my friends, my coworkers. I saw it on TV. This is what's normal. This is where you're supposed to be. And if you're not, you're going to let people down. And so I knew from a very young age that I liked men sexually. And I had that desire. And I would say in my head over and over again, no, Zeph, you are not gay. You like women. And you need to keep up with that. And it was when my brother died that I was like, wow, you do not like women. You know that. You've been saying this forever. And my brother died when he was 40. And I'm like, that's 20 years. I could die in 20 years. I am not going to be someone that I'm not. And so I came out. I went on like a date with a boy. And I'm like, wow, this is actually what it's supposed to feel like. It felt different, kissing a boy, doing things with a boy. It was joy. It was like beautiful, and it felt normal for me. And what I was doing, I was forcing myself to be someone that I wasn't, and felt very uncomfortable doing it. Did I love the women I was with? Of course. There was like an authentic sort of like romantic love there where I cared for them, but it was more like kind of like just like a really good best friend where I sincerely cared for them. But like in between girlfriends, you never knew this, but I never really told people until after I came out. I was always fooling around with boys. Yeah, always. So like grade 9 was the first time I had experimented with a boy. And yeah, I think it was grade 9. And that continued all through high school. Obviously when I wasn't with girls, but I would do stuff, but then it would be as it was happening and after, like, no, you're not, no,
Yeah. And
which is just stupid. But it's not stupid. It's just like you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, the brain gets in the way, and the brain's like, not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and then and after my brother passed, I was like, screw this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be who I am, who I want to be, and obviously never turn back because that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was that kind of initial process like? I mean, like many folks sometimes like set a deadline or precedent or like I'm going to come out here, I'm going to do there. With you were like, enough's enough.
Yeah, enough's enough.
I'm done with the veil. I'm done with like just not being who I want to be. And like by then I would imagine you had gathered that like I really enjoy being, you know, not with girls.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, so why am I lying to yourself? How did it feel to finally be able to be like, listen, I'm done lying to you. I'm done lying to myself. I'm done just not being.
Yeah. It felt freeing.
Ah.
It was very freeing and just like made me feel happy. I think a lot of my friends queer friends I've talked to, a lot of them did come out around the same time. It's like just after university or during university. And I think it's like you're learning other things outside of high school. Like for me, I was required to take university English. And I had a teacher, her name's Dana White, amazing, still love her, we still talk.
Shout out Dana,
yeah. She was the first person, teacher, where I was introduced to exploring queerness through text. And so we did almost throughout the entire full year, a bunch of queer texts. And I was like, oh, okay, so this exists. This isn't taboo. This isn't something to be frowned upon. So honestly, that also helped as well. It's like a combination of a bunch of different things. But I think as you get older, you kind of just see that the world is not what we are taught it is to be all the time. And you kind of go outside your bubble and you learn, and kind of your identity just develops and matures. Yeah.
Now, because I didn't know about you feeling this way since junior high, you were saying.
Yeah.
Do you think, because we kind of talked about this before the cameras were rolling, do you think that if high school then was a lot more accepting like it is now,
100%.
Do you think your process would have been a lot sooner?
100%.
Okay.
And I think a lot of kids are coming out earlier, and that's becoming very political now, and they're saying we didn't have this when we were kids, when I was in school, but no, they did. They were in the closet. And so it's more prevalent now because it's more accepted now. So those numbers have always existed. There's freedom and less, it's just less frowned upon. It's less scary to come out. And I think I'm so fortunate, and I feel so happy for this generation, because I think a lot of kids my age, when we come out later, you're starting to go on dates and things and get crushes when you're young. And that doesn't develop for queer people till later in my generation. So there's it's almost like we're stunted in some ways, and we didn't get to experience that. I did, even though it wasn't authentic, but you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's sort of stunted, and it affects a lot of queer people in my generation. Even before my generation, it was even harder and more difficult, and so yeah, that's why I think all the stuff going on politically right now, it's so important to stand against and to speak out, because that pendulum is kind of coming back again, and I think it could be very harmful for the queer generation now too. So
yeah, it's always fascinating to me in that the only way I've been able to relate to it really is via art, because when I began to film and shoot things, I was like, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not a filmmaker. on me. And then the more and more I would go to sets, the more I was like, I really like this. I think this is what I like to do. And just like going to friends, family, and being like, I want to do this. I was so like worried, terrified. What would they think? The whole like plethora of like, and this is the closest I can come to conveying similar emotion and empathize. And it was interesting that once I said it, yes, you had folks that were like, that's dumb. And I'm like, cool, but also I don't care. I'm going to do it. This is what brings me joy.
Yeah.
And it's very bizarre that like for you to go to people and be like, this brings me joy, and they're like, but your joy brings me not joy.
Yeah.
So don't like, so what's the answer of like, don't be happy, don't be joyous? Like, if you had to talk to anyone who might be like afraid to come out, what would you let them know or want them to know about the process?
I think I would want them to know that like you will feel supported by someone. It might not be by someone who you want the support from, like a parent or a sibling or whomever, but there will be love and care and support from a whole group of people. And there's like kind of like a chosen family you can have. So I think just having the courage to do it, to come out, is something that's important, but also you got to feel comfortable and you'll be ready when you're ready, and like take all the time that you need, because sometimes it's not safe, like depending on your age and the kind of environment you live in, coming out can be potentially not a safe thing. So it's very there's like a balance, and it's very different for everyone depending on their situation too. So I just like, when you are ready to come out, just having the courage and knowing there is love, there is support, there's a whole community there for you.
Oh, here we go, another.
Let me just pop in. Since it is Pride Month, wondering, how do you spend your month going out now that we do get to show courage and show that support to people on a larger scale? So, what are your favorite things to do, and who do you like to spend your time with during Pride Month?
So I like to spend time with my community, a lot of my queer friends. Something I like to do is kind of inform other people about the history of Pride, and kind of where it started, why it started. A lot of people don't know that. I think that history is super, super important to kind of help create, obviously, understanding, but so, and even just informing myself, like just constantly kind of just educating myself with like books or podcasts on the history of just like queerness and where it kind of evolved, and just like groups that, there's still lots of groups like Black and Indigenous people of color who are trans especially do not have acceptance, and a lot of their lives are like still in danger all across the world, and they were the ones who like really lifted up like especially gay people, and kind of created that sort of freedom that we have been able to get. So I think marginalized groups especially still don't get to experience the pride that many of us do. So that's important. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, in your process of course, like reading kind of like more like queer writing and exploring, there has to be some inspirations and folks that like you're like, oh my gosh, thank you, to look up to. Are there any that you'd like to mention or share with folks to like look into if they're exploring and questioning and thinking?
Yeah, for me, like something that kind of helped me come out, there was this movie called Prayers for Bobby, and Sigourney Weaver's in it, and it's a true story about this woman who, she was Christian, and there were 3 kids that she had, and they were very, very like heavily Christian family, and her favorite son was her youngest one, and his name was Bobby, and he happened to be gay and came out, and she completely just pushed him aside, and they were kind of like trying to work through their relationship as like mother and son, and he ended up, like, it wasn't working out. He ended up killing himself, and she obviously affected her, and she has changed kind of her belief system and has become like a huge proponent of the queer community and supporter of the queer community, and just talks about like the detrimental effects that her beliefs had on her child and like a whole community. That is one. Another one that I really like, I'm just going to go grab it super quick. It's over here. Is that okay? There is this graphic novel that I got from a local store here. It's called The Quilt Bag. And it is amazing. And they have lots in stock over there. But this was a really great sort of graphic novel that I read. It's called Our Work is Everywhere, an illustrated oral history of queer and trans resistance. And so this was also very informative for me as well, just kind of about the main people who've kind of done a lot for our community. But it's really beautifully illustrated. The stories are wonderfully written, super informative. So this one I'd also recommend. I really loved it.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, because oftentimes we like forget that, like, you touched on this like very early on, is that like from schoolwork and all of us pretending to know what we want to do to like, it's like without you sharing like, I want to do this, I want to, like, you never know what support and what people exist. And you said it very well, where like, you're not alone. It's not just like, it can feel, and of course not invalidating anyone's feelings of like, there's no one here, there's no support and everything, completely valid. But it's very interesting that like when folks like go into art or when they come out and everything, like once they're like, this is me, this is what I want to do, you do end up finding like your people.
100%.
How has that process of like finding your people been like for you? And like you said that like, although it might not be, you know, directly coming from family, you can make your own.
You can make your own family. It's like a second family, like 100%. So just meeting people. For me, just like all of my queer friends, it's just like a gay old time. It's like amazing. Just like we...
In the title, literally,
we literally have... We understand it. There's like such an understanding, an unspoken understanding. We don't like, we share our experiences and we have shared our experiences, but it almost goes without saying. We know that like, we have a lot of similar experiences. We also have a lot of different experiences, and just knowing that we love and care for one another and support one another. It's good for your mental health. It's good for like living your life authentically and loving who you are and loving your people in your life. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Said by myself. So we bumped into you at the Odd Bird Fair.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, what are the plans for Zeph going forward for conventions, kind of like
absolutely
stuff?
So the Royal Bison was around for like over a decade. It was a very beautiful sort of art and craft fair that was created for people to show their goods. I was working with Royal Bison as like an organizer, just helping the main organizer out, and a bunch of us were kind of helping. And they showed us the ropes because they were letting us know like they were wanting to retire the Royal Bison, and kind of showing us the ropes to create our own craft fair going forward. So in the spirit of all of Royal Bison goodness, we created our own, and it's called Odd Bird Art and Craft Fair. So it's still the same spirit, still all of like Edmonton's best artists, creators, craft makers, and so there's about 5 of us who were on that team, and now we've all created our own. So that's kind of what's going on now. Is I'm one of the organizers with these 5 amazing people and helping to have a space for,
Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you helped. Like, here I was like, oh, you've got like your own like kind of booth here. I never thought to ask like, did you help organize this?
So
Or like,
I'm helping, helping organize it with these groups of people. So it's, it was our first one that we had in the springtime. There's going to be another one in the winter. So it's going to be like the last week in November and the first weekend in December for our winter market.
and now that I know that you were on the organizing end of things, I can say Rekha and I thought it was like fantastic, wonderful. How did your first?
It was like very successful. We had a lot of people show up. We all like worked really hard, especially with like social media, and did like this. Our friend Nico did this really good. He's one of the organizers as well. Did this really good video series with like bird masks and kind of interviewing some of the vendors in their workspace, and kind of so we got to see the kind of behind the scenes of the craftsmanship that they do and what their space looks like and things like that. So yeah, it was amazing. Everyone did such a good job. Everyone worked really hard to kind of get people in the doors, and I think it was very successful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great to hear. No, we definitely like when Rekha and I stopped by, I'm like, it is so packed. It's so busy. Like there's tons going on, and it's interesting because like at the same time, like you had like the farmers market going on, like so many things happening, but still inside there was like ultra busy. I was like, this is great. I want more of this to happen because I feel like we should have
100%.
Different festivities, everything. Because like many cities, towns like begin like they'll have the one, and then it's like that's it for the month, folks.
Yeah,
and you're waiting till like next spring, next everything. So the dates that you said for the next one are going to be...
So the last weekend in November, it's going to be like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
And then the first weekend in December.
Perfect.
I can pull the dates up on my phone super quick.
Is
you want to pass me out, and I'll just quickly look for you, just to give you the right dates. But
and we'll slowly just cut it so it's like Zeph knew exactly the dates.
So November 29th, 30th, and December 1st. And then the next weekend as well. It'll be December 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Beautiful. Okay. Zeph, I love sitting down and chatting with you. This was
amazing.
great. I learned so much. I know Zeph's going to say, greatest interview ever. No.
Amazing.
Yeah. But what can you share with us for things that you have upcoming? Where can folks kind of contact you and reach you? Are you open to commissions? Share all that goodness with us.
Yeah, so I have... Do you want to go grab that commission for me, Gabby? On the piano there? Yeah. So I've been doing lots of pet commissions these days. So this is my friend's dog in a Tyrion Lannister outfit.
Nice.
And just kind of like this very beautiful sort of galaxy background. So I've been doing lots of commissions like this. I've been doing lots of commissions of mosaic tile, of just like lots of queer bodies. This year I'll be at the White Ave Art Walk, the Strathern Art Walk, and I'll be at the Folk Fest as well, vending there on the Friday to the Sunday. So also in Market Collective in Calgary and in the Punk Rock Market in Edmonton as well. So I'm kind of all over the place right now, just kind of have my hands in many different pots doing things. So yeah.
Beauty. And then where can folks reach you on?
So you can get me on my Instagram at ZephMind. That's ZEPH Mind. I also have a website, so it's just www.zephmind.com. And there's this new social media app called Kara, I'm not too sure how you pronounce it. But again, I'm on there right now. It's just like lots of less AI happening on there. So
yes.
So there, that my handle is at ZephMind as well. So ZEPH Mind.
Beautiful. Awesome, folks. Zeph,
it was great to talk to you, Gabby. Thanks for having me, you guys.
An amazing interview. We loved coming in here, seeing your space, just all the art and amazing stuff. Like, please check them out. Please come say hi. Tell them we sent you, as they say. But as always, folks, thank you for tuning in. Rekha's been behind the camera. I've been Gabby, and we'll catch you at the next one.